Watch this. When you're tired of being strong. What if I told you the strongest people in the world are the ones who cry, alone? What if I told you you're not broken, you're just tired of being everyone's strength? This is not just a bedtime story. It's a mirror to your pain, your silence, and your strength. And tonight, I will ask you 5 deep questions. Write your answers in the comments, not just for me, but for you, to see how strong, how honest, how awake you really are. Tell me, where are you listening from? And are you someone who pretends to be strong, even when you're falling apart inside? If yes, then stay. This story is yours. Close your eyes. Let the weight fall off your shoulders. For the next few minutes, you don't have to be strong. You just have to be. You see, there's a hidden war no one talks about. A war inside you. Between who the world wants you to be and who you really are. And the more you try to stay strong, the more tired you become. She was always the strong one. The girl who smiled in photos, even when her world was falling apart. The girl who listened to everyone's pain, but never spoke about her own. People admired her strength. They said she was so inspiring, but they never saw her cry into her pillow at night, whispering to the ceiling, "Why me?" Question 1. Have you ever been the one who stays strong for everyone, but feels completely alone inside? She didn't ask for much. Just a moment to rest, a hand to hold, a voice that said, "You don't always have to be okay." But life kept demanding, and she kept delivering, smiling, helping, surviving, until one day, she couldn't. She sat in the shower for an hour, water mixing with tears, her body shaking, not from cold, but from years of silence. That night, she didn't want to be strong. She just wanted to be held. Question 2. When was the last time you allowed yourself to fall without feeling like a failure? They say strong people never give up, but they never talk about how much it hurts to keep going. They say, "You're brave, you're resilient." But resilience is heavy, and even the strongest backs can break under invisible weight. You see, there is no weakness in needing rest. There is no shame in saying, "I'm tired." Even the sun sets. Even the ocean sleeps. So why can't you? Tonight, don't wear your armor. Don't force your smile. Just lie down and breathe. Let the strong version of you rest, because sometimes being soft is the bravest thing you can do. Part 2, the mask of strength. Close your eyes again. You survived the day, but surviving isn't living, is it? You smiled when you were breaking. You helped others when your hands were empty. You stood tall, even when your knees begged to fall. And still, they ask for more strength, more silence, more patience. They never ask, how heavy is the weight you carry? So let me ask you now. Question 2. What if being strong is just another kind of prison? Let's return to her, to Medusa. They feared her eyes, not because they were evil, but because they could see truth. She had seen too much betrayal, too many masks, and that's when it happens. When a soul sees too much pain, it either becomes stone or fire. She chose both. Because when the world calls you a monster, again and again, one day, you believe it. Question 3. Have you ever worn a mask of strength for so long you forgot your real face? They say she turned men into stone. But what if those men were already made of stone inside? No empathy, no guilt, no heart. They called her a curse, but she was the mirror. The mirror they never wanted to look into. And maybe you are that mirror too. You've been strong for so long, you've forgotten how to be soft. But tonight, you don't have to wear the armor. Not here, not with me. Take a breath, let go of the shield, unclench the fists you hide in your heart, and just feel, because feeling isn't weakness, it's truth. Question 4. If the world only rewards strength, who dares to stay soft? Remember, Medusa didn't ask for war. She asked to be left in peace. But peace is denied to those who threaten the powerful, even if all they do is survive. She lived in silence until silence screamed louder than words. Maybe that's you. Maybe you've been screaming too, just quietly. So tonight, let the silence speak. Let the pain breathe. Let your soul remember. It is not made of stone. It still feels. It still hurts. And yes, it still hopes. Question 5. If you've been strong for everyone else, will you be gentle with yourself? Take a deep breath again. Let it fall gently from your chest. You're safe here. There's no need to be strong right now. Just be. Let your mind drift into the quiet and listen closely, because our story continues with the ones who carry silent burdens. Our story today begins again on a cold hill where the stars blinked like old memories and the wind whispered names only the soul remembers. There lived a man, not a warrior, not a king, just a man. But every day he wore invisible armor, smiled through storms, carried others, even when he was breaking inside. They said he was so strong. But no one asked, what happens to the strong when no one is watching? He built a home with his bare hands, fed mouths with hands that never trembled, and cried only at night where no one could see. He had learned something dangerous, that men are praised for silence, not softness, not sorrow, not the ache of trying again and again. He remembered how his father once said, "Real men don't cry." But what is real when your heart is drowning? So now let me ask you. Question 3. When we teach people to hide pain, are we teaching them to die slowly? One evening, he stood by the sea, waves crashing like memories he couldn't outrun. His back hurt, his hands bled, but still, he smiled. Until a little boy walked up to him and asked, "Why are your eyes always tired, Baba?" He paused. He didn't know what to say. Not because he didn't have words, but because for the first time, someone saw the weight. That night, he didn't tell a bedtime story. He became one. There's a kind of bravery that isn't loud, that isn't on battlefields or behind microphones. It's the kind of bravery that keeps getting up when everything inside you says stop. And sometimes the strongest ones are those who just kept walking. No trophies, no applause. Just a silent, sacred strength that never wanted to be seen. But the truth, even the strong need rest. Even the strong need arms to fall into. Even the strong need someone to say, you don't have to carry it all alone. So tonight, let this be your whisper in the dark. You're not failing. You're not weak. You're human. And it's okay to rest. Let your eyes gently close. Let your shoulders fall. Feel your weight melt into the bed. Tonight, you don't need to fight. You just need to feel. Let go of the day, of the pain, of pretending. Because in this part of the story, we meet someone who carried silence for so long that he forgot the sound of his own heart. He used to laugh once, before the world demanded he grow up, before the world said, "Don't cry, be strong, hide your feelings, be a man." But deep down, he was still the child who used to chase butterflies, who believed in magic, who just wanted someone to say, "It's okay, I see you, I care." And so, he built a fortress of silence, brick by brick, smile by forced smile, until no one could hear his screams anymore. He became the dependable one, the strong one, the one who never breaks. But let me ask you this. Question 4. When no one sees your cracks, do you start believing you're unbreakable? Or do you start breaking in secret? One night, he sat under a flickering street lamp, rain falling like teardrops from the sky, and for the first time, he whispered to no one, "I'm tired of pretending I'm okay." It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was soft. So soft. Only the wind heard him. Only the stars blinked back. But something shifted. The weight, so tightly bound to his chest, finally cracked. And through that crack, light came in. That's how healing starts. Not in shouting, not in running, but in a quiet moment when your soul finally says, "I deserve to rest. I deserve to be heard." So tonight, as you breathe deeply, let this story remind you. You don't need to prove anything to be loved. You don't need to be perfect to be worthy. You don't need to carry everyone else to belong, because there is one truth we often forget. Even rocks erode. Even trees bend. Even stars collapse. So why do you think you're not allowed to rest? Close your eyes. Let the world disappear. In this safe space, you don't need to wear your armor. No one is watching. No one is judging. Just you and the truth you've been hiding for far too long. He was the one everyone called. The one who always said, "I'm fine," even when he wasn't. He carried everyone's pain but never dropped his own. He was the listener, but no one ever asked, "How are you really?" So he smiled, he laughed, he pretended, but every night his soul whispered, "What about me?" Let me ask you this. Question 5. If you're always the strong one, who holds you when you fall? One day, he stood in front of the mirror, not to fix his hair, but to find the person he'd lost. And as he stared into his own eyes, he realized he didn't recognize himself anymore. He had become what the world needed and forgotten what he needed. So for the first time, he said the words out loud, "I need help." And it didn't make him weak. It made him human. Because real strength isn't never breaking. It's knowing when to stop pretending. It's knowing you deserve to be heard, to be held, to be healed. Shh. Take a deep breath. Let it all go. Not just the air from your lungs, but the pressure from your chest. You are allowed to let go. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to walk away from what hurts without apologizing for surviving. You tried harder than anyone knew. You stayed. You forgave. You hoped. But there comes a moment where holding on hurts more than letting go. So I ask you tonight, question 6, if peace costs you everything else, is it still too expensive? There was once a girl. She always gave and gave until nothing was left. Her friends laughed. Her family smiled. But no one noticed. Her soul was empty because she was pouring from a cup that never got refilled. One day, she sat alone, watching the sky turn dark, and for the first time, she whispered, "I can't do this anymore." She didn't want to hurt anyone, But she finally realized her healing was more important than their comfort. So she walked away from what drained her, from what made her small, and slowly she started to grow. Close your eyes. Breathe in gently. Breathe out slowly. Feel your body melt into the bed. Feel your heart slowly let go. Now, let's talk about something you were never taught in school. The word no. Not the angry no, not the rude no, but the quiet, firm, sacred no. The no that protects your soul. The no that says, I matter too. You were raised to be polite, to say yes, to avoid conflict. But tonight, I want you to realize your peace is not a favor to others. It is a boundary. And boundaries are not walls. They're bridges to your freedom. Let me ask you, question 7. If saying yes to others means saying no to yourself, is that really kindness? There was a boy, always smiling, always helpful. He carried everyone's burden, but forgot his own. One night, he was asked for another favor. His hands were tired, his eyes dry, his heart empty. But he smiled and said yes. And that night, he cried alone, not because they asked, but because he didn't say no. The next morning, he looked in the mirror and whispered, I'm not selfish for choosing me. That was the first time he gave himself what he gave others: permission, kindness, understanding. Shh. Tonight, I want you to stop running, stop apologizing, stop explaining. Just rest. You don't have to earn your rest. You don't need to prove your pain. You don't need permission to pause. The world told you, work harder. Don't be weak. Don't slow down. But I'm telling you, it's okay to stop. Because your worth was never measured by your productivity. Close your eyes. Breathe in. Breathe out. Feel that? That's your body asking for love, not punishment. That's your soul longing to be heard. There's a tree in the forest, tall, majestic, but every winter it does nothing. No fruit, no flowers, no movement. It just rests. And that's not laziness. That's wisdom. So let me ask you, question 8. If nature rests without guilt, why can't you? You were never built to go nonstop. Even the sun takes a break. Even the oceans pause. Even your heartbeat knows when to slow down. But we forget that rest is not a reward. It is a right, a sacred right, a human right. And every time you ignore it, you're not being strong. You're being disconnected. Disconnected from your body, from your soul, from yourself. There was a woman, always busy, always smiling. But at night she lay awake, not because she couldn't sleep, but because she didn't allow herself to. One day she whispered, I am tired of being tired. And that was the night. She rested without shame. Come closer, not to me, but to yourself. Lay down the armor. Remove the mask. Set down the pressure. You don't have to carry it into your sleep. You've done enough today. You've been enough today. You are enough right now. But still, you feel guilty for resting. Why? Because somewhere along the way, you were taught that your value is in your effort, your worth in your success. But peace doesn't require perfection. Let me take you to a memory. A little girl playing in a field. She trips, she falls, she laughs. She doesn't cry because she fell. She laughs because she knows she's safe. She knows someone is watching. Someone will pick her up. Someone will tell her, you don't have to be perfect to be loved. And now, that little girl is you. But the world forgot to remind you that you're still worthy when you fall, still worthy when you're tired, still worthy when you need help. So let me ask you, question 9. If you had a friend as tired as you, would you tell them to keep pushing? Or would you say, it's okay to rest? Now ask yourself, why don't you deserve the same kindness? Peace is not something you earn. It's something you reclaim, like your breath, like your heartbeat, like your childhood joy. Even a storm knows how to quiet down. Even a river knows when to rest in stillness. So tonight, be like the wind after the rain, soft, gentle, calm. You've carried enough. You've fought enough. You've survived enough. Close your eyes again. Can you feel it? That silence between thoughts, that calm between breaths, that's where your soul lives, not in achievement, but in awareness. There's a myth that to be strong, you must not bend. But look at the bamboo. It bends in every storm and still stands. Strength isn't in the resistance. It's in the release. So tonight, release. Let go of what they said. Let go of what you couldn't do. Let go of the image you tried so hard to become. Just be. You are enough. Even in this silence, even in your stillness, you are loved. Let's begin with this. You don't need to fix everything tonight. Not every emotion needs an explanation. Not every question needs an answer. Sometimes the answer is rest. Sometimes the healing begins when you stop trying to understand and just allow yourself to feel. So now, put down your questions. Put down your guilt. Put down your what ifs and should haves. There is peace in surrender. There is softness in letting go. When was the last time you held yourself, not with judgment, but with gentleness? We are always taught to get it together. But what if you were allowed to fall apart? Not forever, just for tonight, so your heart can stretch and your soul can breathe. Remember this: the moon doesn't shine by effort. The wind doesn't move by will. You don't need to try hard to be worthy of sleep. You don't need to earn the right to peace. You are already made of stardust. You are already enough. Let me tell you a secret. Even stars collapse sometimes. Even suns burn out and go quiet. And in their silence, they become something new. Black holes, galaxies, wombs of new creation. So if you're tired tonight, maybe you're just evolving. Maybe you're not broken. You're becoming. Question 10. What if your exhaustion is not weakness, but transformation? What if your emptiness is the sacred space where something beautiful is about to grow? Close your eyes again and just listen to the silence within you, to the slow rhythm of your breath, to the quiet reminder that you are safe right now, exactly as you are. Let's begin. Not everything you carry belongs to you. Some of it is pain passed down by others. Some of it is fear that was never yours to feel. And some of it is silence you were forced to hold because no one wanted to hear your truth. But just because you've held it for so long doesn't mean it belongs to you. You are not weak for feeling heavy. You are strong because you've carried so much without breaking. But tonight, you don't have to carry it alone. Breathe in deeply And as you exhale, imagine letting go, not of everything, just of what was never yours to hold. Picture this: a quiet forest, leaves gently falling, a sky painted in soft pinks and purples, and you, standing in the middle, with your arms open, finally letting go. Imagine each thought, each worry, as a leaf, and with each breath, another one falls, not in panic, not in fear, but in grace. You are not your weight. You are the soul beneath it. Let's ask again. Question 11. What have you been carrying that isn't even yours? Whose expectations? Whose judgments? Whose silence? And what would your life look like if you laid it all down? Not forever, just for tonight. You don't need to be a hero tonight. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to be anything except real, except soft, except here. Tonight, let sleep hold you the way no one ever has. Let the stars remind you that you are not lost, and let this stillness be your strength. Close your eyes again. Let go of your shoulders. Let your jaw loosen. Let your heart rest. You've done enough today. Everyone expects you to be the strong one, the one who holds the family together, the one who listens, comforts, supports, even when you're falling apart inside. But strength doesn't mean silence. Strength doesn't mean pretending you're fine. Real strength is allowing yourself to feel, to admit, this hurts. This is heavy. This is too much. And still, choosing to breathe. Let's imagine something together. You're walking barefoot on warm sand. The ocean whispers beside you. Waves come and go, like thoughts, like pain, like memories. And you keep walking. Not because you have to, but because it feels good to move forward. Step by step, you return to yourself. Now ask yourself, question 12, why do we feel guilty for needing rest? Why do we hide tears like they're shameful? And who taught us that softness is weakness? Tonight, there is no one to impress, no race to win, no mask to wear, just you and the quiet, just you and the gentle truth. You are enough, even when you're tired, especially when you're tired. Take another deep breath. Hold it. Let it go. There's nothing you need to fix right now. There's nothing you need to solve. Just be. You being. You existing. You healing. And in this stillness, remember, tears are not weakness. They're your body letting go. Shaking is not fear. It's release. Rest is not laziness. It's wisdom. Tonight, you can stop holding the world. Let it rest. Let you rest. Because tomorrow, you'll rise again. And maybe, just maybe, a little lighter. Close your eyes now. Let the weight of the world melt away from your shoulders. Feel the gentle warmth like a fading fire that still glows in the dark. Tonight, our story glides into a quieter chapter where the flames of forgotten hopes whisper quietly in the ashes of time. Our story sets sail now into a forgotten temple, lost beneath sand and silence. It was said that beneath the Temple of Winds, where Medusa once prayed, there burned a flame that never died. This flame, called Itherion by the ancients, was the fire of memory, a place where the truth of every soul could be remembered, without fear, without lies. But few ever found it, and even fewer were brave enough to look into it. After her exile, Medusa wandered the lands guided only by the memory of this flame, a place whispered in temple scrolls, hidden beneath riddles, beneath fear. But what was she really searching for? Was it freedom, or simply the truth about herself? Question 9. When everything is taken from you, your home, your name, your face, what remains of you? She crossed deserts of salt and wind, through forests that wept ancient sap, and mountains so cold even her cursed gaze could not thaw them. Along the way, she met those who feared her, those who hated her, and those who saw nothing at all. They didn't see a monster. They saw a woman walking through silence, with eyes too tired to destroy, and a heart too shattered to fight. And maybe that's what saved her. A child once asked her, "Are you lost?" She smiled, for the first time in years, and whispered, "No, I'm remembering." Question 10. Can healing begin, even when the world still calls you broken? When she finally reached the Temple of Winds, it was not majestic. It was quiet, empty, like a memory too old to recall clearly. Inside, the wind sang through the cracks, carrying voices, soft and long forgotten. She walked past broken statues, dusty altars, and murals that no longer looked like gods. And in the center, a flickering blue flame, small, silent, steady. She knelt before it. She didn't speak. She just watched. And for the first time, the flame blinked. It showed her images, not of curses or violence, but of herself as she once was. A girl with golden hair, singing in temple gardens, laughing under olive trees. Tears fell, not because she was weak, but because she remembered what they took, what they twisted, what they never saw. And the flame, it didn't judge. It just remembered with her. That night, she slept with no nightmares, only dreams of before. And in those dreams, she wasn't cursed. She wasn't hunted. She was whole. She was Medusa, not the monster, not the myth, just the girl who loved the stars, the silence, and the sea. Let your body sink deeper into stillness. Let the warmth around you feel like a soft blanket of stars. You are safe here. You are not alone. And our story is not over yet. It continues now, in a place where even echoes hold memories. After finding the sacred flame, Medusa did not return to the world. She stayed near the temple, not as a prisoner, but as a guardian. She had seen the truth, felt it, held it. And once truth burns inside you, you cannot go back to silence. But something strange began to happen. Visitors started arriving, not kings, not hunters, but women, girls, priestesses, healers, those who had also been called dangerous, those who had also been silenced. They came with no weapons, no shields, only stories, stories of pain, stories of survival. And Medusa listened. She didn't speak much. She didn't need to. Her presence was enough. a mirror for all the broken pieces they carried. Some called her Mother of Silence, some called her Saint of the Unseen, but they all whispered her name, not with fear, but with reverence. Question 11. When a name is used to curse, can we reclaim it, to heal? And over time, the temple changed. The broken walls were painted with colors. The silence was filled with soft chants. The flame grew stronger, not with magic, but with memory, because every story they told was added to the flame, and the flame remembered all. They built no idols, no crowns, only a circle of stones around the fire, where no one stood higher than the other, where every voice was heard, where fear was left at the edge of the cave. This was not a rebellion, it was a remembering, a place where pain wasn't hidden, but honored, where women weren't monsters, but mirrors of truth. And the more they remembered, the less they feared. One night, a girl sat next to Medusa and asked, "Do you ever wish you weren't cursed?" Medusa smiled gently and whispered, "No, because without the curse, I would have never seen the truth." Question 12. If pain leads you to purpose, was it truly a punishment? Her name began to spread again, but differently this time, not as a warning, not as a threat, but as a story of strength. The world, however, doesn't like when women rewrite their endings. And so, rumors began again, that the temple held dangerous secrets, that the flame was evil, that the women were witches. But they didn't stop. They didn't fight. They just kept remembering. Because truth, once awakened, cannot be silenced again. You're still with me, floating in this soft, quiet space. Your breath gentle, your thoughts calm. But even the calmest winds carry the final echoes of a storm. Years passed. The sacred flame burned brighter than ever, and the whispers of the cave were now known across distant lands. But not everyone was pleased. The kings who once ruled through fear, the priests who told only one version of truth, the scribes who wrote history with biased ink. They saw Medusa's sanctuary not as a place of healing, but as a threat, because what they could not control, they wanted to destroy. One moonless night, they came, not as warriors, but as shadows, silent, planned, cruel. They entered the cave while the women slept, but the flame, the sacred flame, sensed their hatred. It flickered once, twice, and then rose like a roaring star. Medusa stood beside it, calm as ever. Her eyes no longer cursed, but they still revealed truth. One by one the shadows approached, and one by one they froze, not into stone, but into stillness, as if their souls remembered what they had forgotten. Fear is not stronger than truth. Question 13. When truth stands quietly, why does fear still try to silence it? The attackers were defeated, not with weapons, but with memory. And yet, Medusa knew, this sanctuary would never be safe again. She looked at the women, at the sacred flame, at the circle of stones, and then at the sky. The stars blinked, as if giving her permission. And then she did something no one expected. She walked into the flame, not as sacrifice, but as a gift. And as her body vanished into light, the flame shimmered gold, then white, then disappeared, leaving behind no ashes, only warmth. The women cried, not in sorrow, but in honor, because they knew she wasn't gone. She had become something else, something everywhere. The warmth in truth, the light in silence, the mirror in every misunderstood soul. Question 14. If a soul burns so brightly that it becomes part of the world, is it ever really gone? The world forgot her name, but not her message. Far beyond the lands of kings and war, beyond the reach of scrolls and crowns, there stood a hidden temple where the wind whispered like lullabies and time itself slowed down. It was said, if you sat still enough and listened long enough, you could hear her voice in the wind. Not the voice of a monster, not the voice of a victim, but the voice of truth. There, the women who had followed her, who had once wept in the cave, built something sacred. A temple not of stone, but of silence, where no god ruled, where no blade entered, only breath, memory, and healing. And in the center, where once the sacred flame burned, there now stood a mirror. Not just any mirror, but one that showed you not your face, but your truth. And whoever looked into it saw not beauty, not power, but pain, and what that pain had made them become. Question 15. If a mirror could show you your soul, would you dare to look? Pilgrims came, not for power, not for miracles, but for peace. Some wept, some forgave, some walked away changed forever. And Medusa, she lived on, not as a tale to scare children, not as a symbol of vengeance, but as a quiet force, a reminder that strength does not roar. Sometimes it whispers. They say one night, a little girl came to the temple. She was afraid, alone, running from voices that told her she was too much, too loud, too strange. She sat before the mirror and waited. For hours. Nothing. Then suddenly, a whisper, not in her ear, but in her heart. You are not broken, it said. You are becoming. And in that moment, the girl smiled. Not because the pain was gone, but because she knew it no longer controlled her. Question 16. If we saw pain as a teacher, not an enemy, how would that change our stories? Far away, in a forgotten part of the earth, where maps end and silence begins, there was a garden, but not of roses, not of tulips, not of life, a garden of stone. Figures stood frozen mid-breath, mid-thought, mid-sin. Their faces were not twisted in fear, but in shame. And if you stood long enough among them, you could hear the echoes, not of screams, but of regret. Some had come with weapons, some with words. All had come with pride, and all had been met by truth. Medusa never roamed these paths, but her memory did. In every wind that whispered, why? In every echo that asked, what made you think you were better? This was not a prison. This was a mirror. Question 17. If the past became stone before your eyes, would you still walk forward, or would you stop and listen? The garden grew each year, not by choice, but by consequence, because the world still feared what it could not control, still punished what it did not understand. But there were those who walked through the garden not with fear, but with reverence. They laid flowers at the feet of the stilled. They whispered apologies to statues that once had hearts, and they wondered, what if these weren't warnings? What if these were stories, frozen, but not forgotten? Question 18. If our worst moments were frozen forever, would we want to be remembered? The world moved on, but the story stayed. Children were told tales of heroes, of Perseus, brave and noble, of gods who protected mankind. But somewhere, in whispered corners, a different story bloomed, one that wasn't carved in stone, but etched in pain. The story of Medusa. She was no longer a girl in a temple, no longer a name cursed in fear. She had become an idea, a reminder that silence can be louder than screams, that punishment doesn't always follow sin, that beauty, power, and independence can become targets. And while her body had fallen, her voice had not. It lived in the minds of those who wondered, of those who questioned, those who refused to believe the first story they were told. Question 19. If we only hear one side of a story, how can we ever know the truth? Generations passed, temples crumbled, empires faded, but Medusa remained, not in flesh, but in art, in dreams, in rebellion, in every woman who refused to be silent, in every soul who chose truth over comfort. They painted her on shields, not to scare, but to protect. They wore her symbol, not as fear, but as resistance, because they finally understood Medusa was not a curse. She was a mirror. And in that mirror, many saw themselves. Question 20. If legends can lie, what truth lies buried beneath your own fears? So tonight, as you lie still between dream and reality, let this not just be a story. Let this be a beginning, the beginning of asking, of wondering, of seeing the world not in black and white, but in shadow and light. Let Medusa's silence remind you that sometimes the most dangerous thing a person can be is honest, and the bravest thing they can do is endure. So close your eyes, and as the stars blink slowly in the sky, remember, every monster has a name, every name has a story, and every story deserves to be heard. Good night from the Garden of Truth and the echo of Medusa.